My name is Elena Vance. I'm 30 years old, and for the last 10 years, my life has been a series of sacrifices. While my friends were backpacking through Europe, I was picking up overtime shifts in the IT department. While they were going out for fancy dinners, I was eating instant noodles over my keyboard, fixing a server crash at 2 a.m. I said no to parties, no to vacations, no to anything that cost time or money. I had a goal, a single burning focus that kept me going through the exhaustion: a house. Not just any house. It was the house I'd been sketching since I was a little girl. A small blue house with a white picket fence, a big oak tree in the front yard, and a porch swing for quiet evenings. It was a childish dream, but it was mine. It represented everything I craved: stability, peace, and a space that belonged to me and me alone. A place no one could take away. Today, that dream stopped being a drawing in a tattered notebook. Today, it became real. The key was cold in my palm, its metal edges sharp and definite. I stood on the sidewalk just looking at it. My house. The blue was a soft, welcoming robin's egg. The fence was as white and perfect as I had imagined. The oak tree stood tall, its branches reaching out like protective arms. My realtor had already left, but I couldn't bring myself to walk inside just yet. I wanted to savor this moment, the culmination of a decade of relentless work. My hands trembled a little as I finally walked up the stone path and put the key in the lock. The click was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The door swung open, and I stepped into the bright, empty living room. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, dancing on the freshly polished hardwood floors. It smelled of new paint and possibility. I walked through every room, my footsteps echoing in the quiet space. I ran my hand along the cool granite of the kitchen countertops. I imagined my future here, baking on a Sunday morning, reading by the fireplace in the winter, planting a garden in the spring. This wasn't just wood and nails. It was the foundation for the rest of my life. A wave of pure joy washed over me, so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. I had done it. I had actually done it. And the very first thing I wanted to do was share it. I pulled out my phone, my fingers flying across the screen as I opened the family group chat. My mom, Linda. My dad, Robert. My younger brother, Tyler. This was it. This was the moment they would finally see what all my hard work had been for. They had always called me obsessed and no fun. They'd teased me for being a workaholic. But now they would understand. They would have to be proud. My thumb hovered over the send button. The message was simple, filled with all the hope and excitement bubbling inside me. I got the house. It's everything I ever dreamed of. I'm making a special celebration dinner this Saturday at 7 p.m. to break it in. Can't wait to show you all my new home. I attached a picture of me on the porch, grinning like an idiot, holding the key up to the camera. I hit send, my heart pounding with anticipation. I could already picture it, my mom crying happy tears, my dad giving me a proud hug, my brother patting me on the back. For the first time, I wouldn't be the boring, responsible daughter. I would be the daughter who made her dreams come true. This house would finally be enough. I was sure of it. Saturday arrived with a nervous electric energy. I woke up early. The sunlight in my new bedroom feeling like a good omen. The whole day was a blur of happy preparations. I wanted everything to be perfect. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a statement. It was proof that I had built something wonderful, and I wanted them to be the first to share in it. I spent the morning unpacking boxes for the kitchen, carefully washing the new set of dinner plates I'd saved for a special occasion. This was definitely a special occasion. I'd gone grocery shopping the day before, my cart filled with all their favorites. I was going to make my mom's favorite meal, a slow-roasted chicken with rosemary and garlic, served with creamy mashed potatoes. She always said no one made it as well as her mother, and I had spent weeks practicing the recipe until it was just right. For my dad, I bought a bottle of the expensive red wine he loved but rarely bought for himself. And for Tyler, I was baking a lemon tart from scratch, just like the one we used to make together as kids before he decided baking wasn't cool anymore. The afternoon was filled with the warm, comforting smells of cooking. The chicken sizzled in the oven, filling the house with a savory aroma. The crust for the tart was perfectly golden. I set the new dining table with the good silverware and cloth napkins. I even bought a bouquet of fresh sunflowers to place in the center, their bright yellow faces adding a splash of cheer to the room. To top it all off, I hung a string of silver balloons over the doorway that spelled out a single word: home. By 6:30 p.m., everything was ready. The chicken was resting, the potatoes were steaming, and the tart was cooling on the counter. I had showered and changed into a new dress. I lit a few candles, dimmed the lights, and put on a soft playlist of my dad's favorite classic rock songs. The house looked like something out of a magazine. It felt warm, alive, and ready for a celebration. I sat on the couch in the living room, my vantage point giving me a perfect view of the front door. I smoothed down my dress, my stomach fluttering with anticipation. 7, any minute now. 7:05. They were probably just hitting a little traffic. Dad was always a few minutes late. 7:15. I checked my phone. No messages. Maybe they were all riding together, and Mom was telling Dad which way to go, leading to one of their classic navigation arguments. I smiled at the thought. 7:30. The smile was gone. A knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach. The beautiful aroma from the kitchen was starting to feel heavy, cloying. The songs on the playlist were starting to repeat. I walked over to the window and peered out into the darkening street. Nothing. Just empty sidewalks and the occasional passing car. 7:45. I sent a text to the group chat. Hey, everything okay? Dinner's ready whenever you are? My hands felt clammy. I read the message over and over. Did it sound too needy? Too impatient? I shouldn't have to feel this way. It was my party. They were the ones who were late. 8. An hour had passed. The candles had burned down a little, casting flickering, lonely shadows on the walls. The mashed potatoes would be getting cold. The chicken would be dry. The balloons spelling home seemed to mock me from the doorway. My excitement had curdled into a familiar hollow ache in my chest. I knew this feeling. It was the same one I'd felt at my high school graduation when they showed up just as I was taking my cap and gown off. The same feeling from my college awards ceremony, which they'd missed entirely for one of Tyler's soccer games. I kept telling myself there had to be a good reason, a flat tire, a family emergency I didn't know about. Something. Anything would be better than the reason that was slowly creeping into my mind, that they just didn't care enough to show up. At 8:15, my phone finally pinged. I snatched it off the counter so fast I almost dropped it. It was a message in the group chat from my mom. My shoulders slumped with relief. Finally, an explanation. But the message wasn't an explanation. It wasn't an apology. It was 5 simple, brutal words. Sorry. Something came up. Busy tonight. Just like that. A blanket statement for all 3 of them. Busy. On the biggest, most important night of my life. A night I had been planning for weeks. A night I had told them about a month in advance. They were busy. There was no follow-up text from Tyler. No call from my dad. Just that cold, dismissive message from my mom, speaking for everyone. The words hung in the air, sucking all the warmth and joy out of my perfect new house, leaving behind nothing but a cold, empty silence. For a long time, I didn't move. I just stood in the middle of my beautiful, empty dining room, staring at my phone. The screen had gone dark, but the words were burned into my mind. Sorry. Something came up. Busy tonight. It was so casual, so thoughtless. It was the kind of text you send when you're canceling a casual coffee date, not a milestone celebration for your own daughter. I looked around the room. The candles had melted into waxy puddles. The ice in the water glasses had dissolved, leaving rings of condensation on the polished wood of the table. The sunflowers in the centerpiece seemed to droop, their bright faces now looking sad and tired. The balloons spelling home were starting to lose their air, the E sagging lower than the other letters. The whole scene felt like a funeral for a life I thought I was starting. Slowly, I walked over to the table and pulled out a chair. I sat down in my designated spot at the head of the table. My plate was empty. The 5 other place settings for Mom, Dad, Tyler, and even an optimistic extra one for his on-again, off-again girlfriend were pristine, untouched. The smell of the roast chicken, which had earlier filled me with such pride, now just made me feel sick. The silence was the worst part. A house this size needed noise. It needed laughter, conversation, the clinking of forks against plates. Instead, all I could hear was the low hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of my own heart. The silence was a physical presence. It was heavy, pressing down on me, filling every corner of the room. It was louder than any argument, more cutting than any insult. It was the sound of my own insignificance. My mind started to play a highlight reel of my family's dismissals. I remembered being 10 years old, so proud of a short story I had written. I tried to read it to my mom, but she waved her hand impatiently. Not now. Elena. I'm watching my show. I remembered my 16th birthday when I'd begged for a party. They agreed. But then my dad spent the whole time in the garage fixing his car. And my mom complained about the noise until all my friends left early. I remembered showing them my first major promotion at work. My dad glanced at the email and said, "That's nice, dear," before turning back to the TV. Tyler had just snorted. "So, you'll be even more boring now." They never showed up. Not really. They were present physically sometimes. But their attention, their approval, their pride that was always reserved for Tyler. He was the charming one, the athletic one. His minor victories were celebrated with fanfare. If he got a C on a math test, my mom would bake a cake. If he won a single game in a local tennis tournament, my dad would brag about it for weeks. He was the sun they all orbited around. I was just a distant, quiet moon, expected to handle myself without needing any light of my own. I had convinced myself that this house would change everything. How could they ignore this? This was a physical, tangible accomplishment, a monument to my hard work. It was supposed to be the thing that finally made them see me, that made them proud. But they didn't even bother to come inside. A single tear traced a hot path down my cheek. Then another. I didn't sob. It was a quiet, hopeless kind of crying. The kind you do when you realize a painful truth you've been avoiding your whole life. They weren't just busy. They weren't just forgetful. They didn't want to be here. My success wasn't something for them to celebrate. It was an inconvenience. Maybe it even made them uncomfortable. My independence meant I didn't need them. And maybe deep down, that made them feel irrelevant. I looked at the empty chair where my mother was supposed to sit. I looked at the one for my father, for my brother. These were supposed to be their seats. Not just tonight, but for countless holidays and dinners to come. I had built this home with them in mind, carving out a space for them in my future. Sitting there in the crushing, deafening silence, a new thought began to form. It started as a whisper of anger beneath the deep ocean of hurt. It was cold, and sharp, and clear. Why did I keep trying? Why did I keep setting a place at the table for people who never bothered to show up? I pushed my chair back, the sound scraping loudly in the quiet room. I stood up and looked at the feast I had prepared, the love I had poured into every dish. It was all for them, and they had rejected it without a second thought. Right then, a decision settled over me, as solid and real as the house itself. It wasn't sad. It was just final. I walked over to the table and began to clear the untouched plates. My movements were no longer sad, but methodical, purposeful. If they can't celebrate my wins, they don't deserve a seat in my house. I spent the next few hours cleaning up the evidence of my failed celebration. I scraped the perfect, untouched roast chicken into a Tupperware container, my motions stiff and robotic. I dumped the creamy mashed potatoes into the trash. I wrapped the lemon tart in plastic wrap and shoved it to the back of the fridge, unable to even look at it. I washed every dish, dried every glass, and put them all away. I was erasing them from my home before they had ever even set foot in it. By the time I was done, it was nearly midnight. The balloons were in a sad, deflated heap in a trash bag. The house was spotless and silent once more. I was emotionally drained, hollowed out, but the sharp sting of hurt had been replaced by a cold, hard numbness. I was just about to head upstairs to bed when a sharp knock echoed from the front door. My heart gave a stupid, hopeful leap. Maybe it was them. Maybe they realized their mistake and had come to apologize. Maybe the busy excuse was real, and they had rushed over the second they were free. I opened the door, my hopeful illusion shattering the instant I saw who was there. It was my brother's girlfriend, Jessica. She stood on my porch, illuminated by the dim yellow light, holding a square cardboard box from the grocery store bakery. She wasn't dressed up. She was in sweatpants and a hoodie, looking like she'd just rolled off the couch. "Hey," she said, offering a weak, indifferent smile. "Sorry, we're late." I glanced behind her. The driveway was empty. "Where is everyone?" I asked, my voice flat. Jessica shrugged, a gesture she used to dismiss anything she didn't want to deal with. "Oh, you know, Tyler got caught up playing video games with his friends. And your mom went to bed early. Headache. I figured I should at least swing by." She pushed the cake box into my hands. "Here. A little housewarming gift." I looked down at the box. Through the plastic window, I could see a generic sheet cake with overly bright, garish blue frosting. A corner of the white price tag was still peeling off the side, $19.99. It was such a lazy, thoughtless gesture. It was almost more insulting than showing up with nothing at all. I stepped aside, holding the door open. "You might as well come in," I said. The numbness was my shield. Jessica walked into the entryway and looked around, her eyes scanning the living room. There was no awe, no excitement for me. Just a flicker of something I recognized all too well. Envy. "Wow," she said, her tone lacking any genuine warmth. "It's big." "I like it," I replied, closing the door. I put the cheap cake on the kitchen counter, as far away from the lemon tart as possible. "So, what was the big emergency? What made everyone so busy tonight?" I asked, leaning against the counter and crossing my arms. I wasn't going to let this go. I deserved an answer. Jessica avoided my gaze, picking at a loose thread on her hoodie. "It wasn't an emergency. Elena. You're being so dramatic. Things just came up." "What things?" I pressed. What was so important that my entire family had to blow off the one thing I have ever asked them to celebrate with me? She finally looked at me, her expression annoyed. "I don't know. Linda had her book club Zoom call. I think Robert was tired from work. And Tyler? Well, Tyler's just Tyler. You know how he is. It's not that deep. We were busy." "It's not that deep," The phrase hit me like a slap. Not deep? This house was 10 years of my life. 10 years of sacrifice. Of loneliness. Of pushing myself to the absolute limit. My entire adult life had been dedicated to this goal. And she was standing in the middle of it, telling me it wasn't deep. The numbness cracked, and the anger I had been suppressing all night surged forward cold and clear. Busy, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Mom's book club is on Tuesdays. Dad gets tired from work every day, but he manages to go golfing all day Sunday. And Tyler is always busy doing nothing. Those aren't reasons. Those are excuses. Jessica rolled her eyes. Whatever. Elena. I came here to say congrats, not to get interrogated. No, I said, stepping closer. The air in the room grew thick, heavy with years of unspoken resentment. You came here to do the bare minimum so you could feel better about yourselves. You brought a cheap store-bought cake with the price tag still on it because you felt a little guilty. But you're not sorry. None of you are. A flash of defensiveness crossed her face. That's not fair. Fair. My voice rose, but I kept it steady. I'll tell you what's not fair. Me spending all day cooking my mother's favorite meal while she was probably on the phone with her sister complaining about how I work too much. Me buying my dad's favorite wine while he was probably watching TV. Not giving me a second thought. Me spending hours preparing for a celebration my own brother couldn't be bothered to pause his video game for. That's what's not fair. Jessica. She was silent, her jaw tight. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. Busy people still make time for love, I said, the words feeling like sharp, polished stones in my mouth. Busy people make time for family. I guess I know where I stand now. The truth of it hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I wasn't a priority. I was an afterthought. The silence stretched on, filled with everything she couldn't and wouldn't say. She couldn't admit they were jealous. She couldn't admit they were selfish. All she could do was stand there, cornered by a truth she didn't want to face. Finally, she broke the silence. I should go, she mumbled, turning toward the door. Yes, I said. You should? I didn't walk her out. I just stood there and watched her leave, closing the door firmly behind her. I locked the deadbolt, and then I walked to the counter, picked up the cheap cake, and dropped the entire box into the trash can. I slept badly, waking up every hour, the empty silence of the house pressing in on me. But when the sun finally rose, casting long, pale stripes of light across my bedroom floor, I didn't feel the crushing sadness of the night before. I felt a strange and unfamiliar sense of clarity. The hurt was still there, a dull ache deep in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a cold, steely resolve. The time for hoping and wishing and waiting for them to change was over. It was time for me to change the rules. I got out of bed, put on a pair of old jeans and a sweatshirt, and went downstairs. I didn't make coffee. I didn't check my phone. I walked straight to the garage, where a stack of flattened moving boxes was leaning against the wall. I pulled one from the pile. A large, sturdy piece of brown cardboard. I found the thick black permanent marker I'd used for labeling boxes and brought them both into the kitchen. I laid the cardboard on the floor and uncapped the marker. The chemical smell filled the air. For a moment, my hand hovered over the blank surface. A part of me, the little girl who just wanted her family's approval, hesitated. Was I going too far? Was this too dramatic? Then I thought of the empty dinner table. I thought of my mom's dismissive text. I thought of Jessica's cheap cake and her casual, cutting remark, "It's not that deep." My hand was steady as I began to write. The marker made a loud, satisfying squeak against the cardboard. I didn't write in anger. I wrote with a calm, deliberate precision. The letters were big, bold, and impossible to ignore. No family discounts. No family visits. No exceptions. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't an argument. It was a declaration. A new policy for my new life in my new home. Family discounts was a nod to all the times they'd expected me to use my IT skills to fix their computers for free, or expected me to loan them money I'd worked hard for with no intention of paying it back. Family visits was self-explanatory, and no exceptions was the lock on the door. It meant I was serious. When I was done, I took a roll of packing tape and walked outside. The morning was cool and quiet. A few of my new neighbors were getting into their cars for work, and a man across the street was walking his dog. I didn't know if they were watching me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't care what anyone else thought. I walked to the white picket gate at the end of my stone path. With long, decisive strips of tape, I fastened the cardboard sign to the front of it, making sure it was secure. It faced the street. A clear and public statement. I stepped back to the sidewalk to look at my work. The sign was crude, but the message was powerful. This fence, this gate, they weren't just decorative anymore. They were a boundary. This was my property, my sanctuary, and I was now in charge of who was allowed to enter. I stood there for a long moment, my arms crossed over my chest. I felt a sense of release, as if a heavy weight I had been carrying for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't just the sad girl whose family didn't show up anymore. I was a woman who was taking control of her own peace. On impulse, I pulled out my phone and took a picture. I wasn't smiling. My expression was neutral, resolute. In the photo, I stood next to the gate, the sign clearly visible, my new blue house standing proudly behind me. It was a portrait of a boundary being drawn. I opened up my social media, an account I rarely used, and I posted the picture. I didn't add a long emotional story. I didn't explain the years of hurt that led to this moment. I just wrote a simple, direct caption, "My house, my rules." Then I put my phone in my pocket, turned around, and walked back inside my home, leaving the sign to speak for itself. I didn't know what would happen next, but as I closed the door behind me, I felt a profound sense of peace. I was finally, truly, home. And I was safe. Because I was the one holding the key. The sign stayed on my gate, a silent sentinel announcing my new rules. I didn't look at my phone for hours after I posted the picture. Part of me expected it to get a few likes from old college friends. Maybe a confused comment or two. What I didn't expect was for my small, quiet act of rebellion to go viral. When I finally picked up my phone that evening, it was buzzing relentlessly. Notifications flooded my screen. Likes, shares, comments, private messages. My picture was everywhere. It was on local news forums, shared by hundreds of strangers on various platforms. The internet, a place I usually avoided, had somehow become my unexpected champion. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Strangers from all over the country, and even some from other parts of the world, were cheering me on. Good for you, girl. Boundaries are important. I wish I had the courage to do this with my own family. You worked for it. You earned it. It's your house. This sign speaks volumes. Don't let them dim your light. Elena. You inspire me. My family acts the same way. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not just seen, but understood. These strangers, who knew nothing about me beyond a picture and a short caption, somehow grasped the deep hurt and quiet power behind my decision. Their words were a balm to the wounds my family had inflicted. They validated my feelings in a way my own blood never had. It was a strange, bittersweet comfort. The validation came from outside, not from within my tight-knit yet emotionally distant circle. The peace of that validation was short-lived. My phone started ringing. It wasn't a text. It was a call. An actual phone call. It was my mother, Linda Vance. Her name flashed on the screen, a familiar dread coiling in my stomach. For years, her calls had meant expectation, guilt, or thinly veiled criticism. This one, I knew, would be no different. I took a deep breath. I could ignore it. But something in me, a new stubborn strength, told me to answer. I needed to hear what she had to say. I needed to stand firm. Hello, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Steady. Her voice, usually calm and composed, was sharp, vibrating with thinly disguised fury. Elena Vance. What is the meaning of this? I knew exactly what she was talking about. Meaning of what? Mom, I asked, playing dumb for a moment, letting the silence hang between us. Don't you play coy with me. That disgraceful sign on your gate and that picture you posted all over the internet. Do you know how humiliating this is for us? Humiliating for us. Not Elena. Why are you hurting? Not, what happened? Not, we're so sorry. It was always about them. Their image. Their feelings. Humiliating, I repeated, letting a sliver of my own hurt and anger seep into my voice. What about how humiliating it was for me? Mom, sitting alone in my dream house with a dinner I cooked for hours, watching the clock tick by, knowing none of you were coming. Oh, for goodness sake. Elena, it wasn't that big a deal. We were busy. Things come up. Her voice grew louder, more frantic. You're making us look terrible. People are commenting, asking if everything's okay. Your Aunt Sarah called me practically in tears. She saw the post. Did Aunt Sarah call you because she was worried about me, Mom, or because she was worried about what people would think of you? I shot back, a wave of cold resolve washing over me. This was it. The moment I finally pushed back. We are your family, Elena. She practically shrieked. You can't just cut us off like this. We're blood. This is a tantrum. A childish tantrum. Take that awful sign down right now and apologize to everyone for this ridiculous display. No, I said, my voice firm. It was a small word, but it felt enormous. It was a word I rarely, if ever, said to her. I won't. This isn't a tantrum. Mom, this is me drawing a line. This is me saying enough is enough. My house. My rules. And right now the rule is, you're not welcome here. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. She probably hadn't heard me speak with such conviction, such unwavering certainty in years. Maybe ever. You'll regret this, Elena, she finally hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You'll be alone. Who will you have then? I have myself, I said, looking around my quiet, peaceful living room. And right now, that's enough. I could hear her sputtering, searching for another angle, another way to manipulate me. But I didn't give her the chance. I calmly ended the call. My hand trembled slightly as I put the phone down. But the fear was gone. In its place was a quiet triumph. I had faced her, and I hadn't buckled. Then Tyler's text came through. Dude, what is your problem? Mom's freaking out. This is so extra. Just take the sign down. Seriously. It's embarrassing. No apology. No concern. Just annoyance that I was causing him inconvenience. I didn't reply. I just scrolled through the hundreds of comments from strangers. Their words of support echoing louder in my ears than my family's angry demands. For the first time, people who barely knew me supported me more than my own blood ever did. And it suddenly occurred to me that was exactly what I needed. Not their empty praise, but genuine support, wherever it came from. The internet had become my chosen family, at least for now, and they were actually showing up. A few days later, the online buzz had quieted down a little, but the sign remained firmly affixed to my gate. I was starting to settle into a new routine. I worked from home in my new office. I enjoyed quiet evenings on my porch swing, and discovered a new sense of freedom that came with truly living alone without the silent burden of expectation from my family. Then, a knock on the door. Not the urgent, angry rap of Jessica. This was a softer, more hesitant knock. I looked through the peephole. It was my father, Robert Vance. He stood on my porch looking smaller, older than I remembered. His usual crisp suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly askew. His eyes, usually sharp and observant, were tired, shadowed with something I couldn't quite decipher. He looked like a man who hadn't slept well. My first instinct was to ignore it, to pretend I wasn't home. But then I remembered the resolve that had settled over me. I wasn't hiding anymore. This was my house. I opened the door, but only partway, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Dad," I said, my voice flat, betraying none of the complicated emotions swirling inside me. A flicker of hope, a deep current of cynicism. He cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping over my face, then passed me into the house. "Elena, can I come in?" "What do you want, Dad?" I asked, not moving to unlock the door. He sighed. A long, weary sound. "Your mother sent me. She's very upset about the sign. About the things you said." So, he was just her messenger. Not here for me. Not here to understand. Just here to fix the problem she couldn't fix herself. The disappointment was a familiar ache. "I'm sure she is," I replied, my voice dry. "She doesn't like it when I don't follow her script." He shifted his weight, wringing his hands together. It was a nervous habit I rarely saw in him. "Elena, we just want to help with the house. We want to celebrate with you properly. Your mother and I. We were talking. We could throw you a big housewarming party. A real one. Get some of her friends. Some of my colleagues. Make it a grand affair." I stared at him, my disbelief growing with every word. A grand affair? A party for them to show off my house and smooth over their embarrassment. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about appearances. About controlling the narrative. "Help with the house?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. "Dad, I bought this house. I furnished it. I did all the repairs and upgrades myself with money I earned working overtime for 10 years. Where was this help when I was saving every penny? When I was eating ramen for dinner every night? When I was skipping every single vacation and family get-together because I was too busy working?" He flinched, the words clearly landing harder than he expected. "Well, we just thought, you know, you're a young woman. We thought maybe you'd need our guidance, our support. You're our daughter, Elena. We want to be involved in your life." "Involved in my life?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Involved when it suits you. Involved when it makes you look good. Involved when you can tell me what to do. That's not involvement. Dad. That's control. His face hardened a little. That's not fair. Elena. We love you. We always have. We just want what's best for you. Do you? I challenged, pushing. Do you really? Because when I invited you to celebrate the biggest accomplishment of my life, you were busy. All of you. Not one of you bothered to show up. Not one of you called to apologize. You sent Jessica with a cheap grocery store cake and a pathetic excuse. And now you show up days later? Not to say I'm sorry, but to try and strong-arm me into taking down a sign because it's embarrassing for you. He looked away, his eyes scanning the carefully tended rose bushes in my front yard. He couldn't meet my gaze. The truth was too painful for him to acknowledge, let alone speak aloud. This is my house. Dad. I repeated, emphasizing each word. It's paid for with my work. Every single brick. Every single nail. Every single plant in that garden. It's mine. All mine. And I don't need your help now. I needed it when I was struggling. When I was lonely. When I was pouring my entire life into this dream. You weren't there then. So you don't get to be here now, trying to take credit or tell me how to live in it. He finally looked back at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of exasperation and something that might have been sadness. Elena, please. Just take the sign down. Let's talk about this like adults. Don't cut us out of your life. I'm not cutting you out of my life, Dad. I said, my voice softening just slightly, but still firm. I'm just setting boundaries. Boundaries you clearly needed to see in bold letters on my gate. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. I didn't wait for his reply. I slowly, deliberately closed the door, the chain lock rattling into place. I heard him sigh heavily on the other side, then the sound of his footsteps retreating down the path. I watched through the window as he walked back to his car. His shoulders slumped, looking like a man carrying the weight of the world. But it wasn't my burden to carry anymore. This time, the control was mine, and the peace in my own home was worth more than any strained, performative family visit. The immediate aftermath of Dad's visit was a chilling silence from my family. No more calls from my mom. No more texts from Tyler. It was the quiet before a storm, and I knew it. They had tried direct confrontation, and it hadn't worked. Their next move would be more insidious. It started subtly. I noticed a few cryptic comments on my social media posts. Not directly attacking me, but hinting at something. Must be nice to get things handed to you. Some people get all the luck. Then the whispers began to grow louder. My cousins, Ryan Cole and Emily Tate, were particularly active on social media. They had always been closer to Tyler, always part of the inner circle of family favoritism. Now they were the mouthpieces for the campaign against me. I started seeing screenshots from family group chats being shared. Not in my main feeds, but in smaller private groups that someone must have leaked. And the messages were ugly. Ryan. Heard Elena bought a house. Like she can even afford that. Probably some kind of loan shark deal. Emily. Or mommy and daddy finally paid for it after all her complaining. She's still dependent. Ryan. Yeah. The IT specialist who skips vacations. Right? Probably just running some scam. Emily. Totally. That whole sign thing is just for attention. She's probably desperate for money. Ryan. The house isn't even hers. Probably just renting. Trying to look rich for the internet. The rumors spread like wildfire. The house isn't even hers. She can't afford it. It's a rental. Her parents must have co-signed. The narrative was simple. I was a fraud. My independence was fake. My accomplishment was a lie. It was infuriating. After all the years I spent working, sacrificing, denying myself everything to achieve this dream, they were trying to invalidate it with baseless gossip. They were trying to strip me of my achievement, to make it seem like I hadn't earned it, because they couldn't stand the idea that I had done it myself, that I had succeeded without them. The familiar sting of injustice flared within me, hot and sharp. But this time, it wasn't followed by tears or quiet resignation. It was followed by a cold, hard determination. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I had facts. I had evidence. I didn't engage with the rumors directly. I didn't descend into the petty back and forth of online arguments. I took a different approach. I gathered my documents, my deed papers, clearly stating my name as the sole owner, my mortgage approval, showing the loan was in my name alone, bank statements showing years of diligent savings, pay stubs detailing my salary and overtime hours. I even pulled out the appraisal report from the bank confirming the house's value. I arranged them neatly on my kitchen counter, making sure my name and all the official details were clearly visible while strategically blurring out sensitive financial numbers. I took a high-resolution photo. Then I went back to my social media, the same platform where the rumors were spreading. I uploaded the picture of my documents. My caption was short, direct, and unyielding. Receipts are louder than gossip. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't mention my family. I didn't even need to. Everyone knew who it was aimed at. The image of the official documents, irrefutable proof of my ownership and my hard work, was a stark contrast to the whispered lies. It was a digital mic drop. The reaction was immediate. The tide turned. The online community, which had been confused by the smear campaign, now rallied even harder behind me. Boom. Take that. Haters. Proof is in the pudding. Or in this case, the deed. This is how you shut down the noise. Elena? So proud. Your family sounds toxic. You earned this. Don't let them diminish it. The comments from my cousins and their ilk quickly disappeared, replaced by the overwhelming support of strangers. They tried to delete their earlier gossip, but the internet never forgets. Screenshots of their lies were already being circulated, exposing their petty attempt to tear me down. It was satisfying. Deeply, profoundly satisfying. My family had tried to use their influence, their network, to discredit me. They had tried to paint me as a liar and a failure. But I had countered their emotional manipulation and baseless gossip with cold, hard facts. And the world had witnessed it. They had failed. And in doing so, they had only strengthened my position and my resolve. I wasn't just building a house. I was building a reputation based on truth and integrity, something they clearly lacked. After I posted the receipts, a tense quiet fell over the digital battlefield. My cousins went silent, and my immediate family seemed to have retreated, perhaps realizing their direct and indirect attacks had failed. For a week, there was nothing. I allowed myself a small, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they had finally given up. That they would leave me to the peace I had fought so hard for. That hope was shattered by a single notification on my phone late one evening. It was a message request from a name I hadn't seen in years, Mia, a distant cousin on my mother's side. She was the quiet one in the family, the one who always hovered at the edge of gatherings, never participating in the loud gossip or the family drama. I had always felt a quiet kinship with her, another observer in a family of performers. I accepted the request, my heart thumping with a nervous rhythm. Her message was short. Maddie, I'm so sorry about all of this. What they're doing isn't right. I think you deserve to see the truth. Attached were 3 screenshots. My hands trembled as I opened the first image. It was from the extended family group chat, the one I had been removed from years ago. The messages were from the day after my disastrous housewarming dinner was supposed to happen. Mom, Linda, just a heads up. Everyone. Elena is having one of her dramatic episodes. If she reaches out, it's best to just ignore her. She needs to learn she can't always be the center of attention. Cousin Ryan, got it. Is that why you guys didn't go to her thing? Tyler said it was a whole meltdown. Jessica, total meltdown. And for what? A house? Please. She'll be begging us for money to help with the mortgage within a year. My breath hitched. They were preemptively poisoning the well, painting me as unstable and financially irresponsible to the entire family. I clicked on the next screenshot. This one was from the day I posted the picture of my sign. Dad, Robert. She's posted a picture of that ridiculous sign online. She's trying to embarrass us. Do not engage. Do not comment. Don't give her the attention she's so desperate for. Tyler, lol. What a loser. As if anyone cares. Let her sit in that big empty house all by herself. It's what she's always wanted anyway. Right? To be alone? Mom, Linda, exactly. We need to present a united front. If anyone asks, we were just trying to give her space. Let her struggle a bit. She'll have to sell it eventually. And then she'll come crawling back to us. It'll be a good lesson in humility for her. A cold dread washed over me, chilling me to the bone. It wasn't just neglect. It wasn't just thoughtlessness. This was a coordinated, deliberate strategy. They were actively, consciously rooting for me to fail. They wanted to see me struggle, to see my greatest achievement crumble. just so I would be forced to return to them, broken and dependent. My own mother wanted to teach me a lesson in humility by hoping for my financial ruin. I didn't think it could get any worse. But the final screenshot was the most damning. It was from the smaller immediate family chat after my dad's failed visit. "Dad, Robert. She wouldn't let me in. She's completely dug in her heels. Tyler. So, what's plan B? We can't let her win. Mom, Linda. We start questioning the source of her money. Ryan and Emily can put some feelers out online. If people think she's a fraud, her little online fan club will disappear. We just need to create enough doubt. Don't hype her. Let her struggle. She'll have to sell." There it was in black and white. A conspiracy? A deliberate, malicious plot to sabotage my reputation and my happiness, orchestrated by my own mother. The word win echoed in my mind. They saw this as a game, a battle. They weren't trying to be a family. They were trying to defeat me. The hurt I felt was immense. A physical blow that knocked the air from my lungs. But beneath it, the last embers of hope for my family were finally extinguished. And from the ashes rose a cold, clear rage. This wasn't a private family matter anymore. This was abuse. And abusers thrive in silence. I took a deep breath. My hands steady now. I knew what I had to do. I went back to my social media page. I uploaded the 3 screenshots. I didn't censor their names. I didn't hide their profile pictures. I let their own words, in their own chat, be the evidence. My caption was the simplest, most painful truth I could write. Imagine rooting against your own blood. I hit post. And then I turned off my phone. I didn't need to see the fallout. The truth was out there now. There was no going back. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe to the channel and share this video. Your support helps me continue to grow and share my journey. The days that followed were quiet. I had blocked every single family member's number and social media profile. The silence they had conspired to create for me, the one meant to break me, had finally arrived. But it felt different now. It wasn't the heavy, crushing silence of rejection. It was a light, airy silence of freedom. It was the sound of peace. The world, however, was not silent. The screenshots had gone nuclear. The story was no longer just about a family dispute. It was a case study in toxic dynamics, a cautionary tale that resonated with thousands. My family was exposed. Their cruelty laid bare for all their friends, colleagues, and neighbors to see. I heard through the grapevine that my mother had deactivated her social media, and that my father was facing awkward questions at his firm. Their campaign had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. They had tried to isolate me, and in the end, they had only isolated themselves. But my story was no longer about them. It was about me, and the home I was building. Slowly, my new life began to take shape. My neighbors, who had watched the saga unfold from a distance, started to reach out. Betty, From 2 doors down, brought over a freshly baked apple pie. Dave, from across the street, offered to help me mow my lawn, an offer I politely declined with a smile, telling him I enjoyed the work. We'd chat over the picket fence, talking about the weather, our gardens, our lives. Simple, kind interactions that filled my days with a gentle warmth. Strangers continued to be a source of unexpected comfort. Letters and postcards began arriving in my mailbox. A woman from Ohio sent me a small hand-painted watercolor of my house. A man from California sent a book on setting healthy boundaries. They were small gestures, but they were filled with more genuine care than my own family had ever shown me. My house was becoming a symbol, and in doing so, it began to feel less like an empty building and more like a real home filled with the goodwill of people I'd never even met. One sunny afternoon, I was sitting on my porch swing reading a book when a woman and her young daughter, who couldn't have been more than 7 years old, stopped on the sidewalk in front of my gate. The little girl was pointing, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy, look, it's the blue house. The one from the story," she whispered loudly. The mother smiled apologetically at me. "I'm so sorry to bother you. My daughter, Sophie, saw your story online. She's been drawing pictures of your house ever since." I smiled, closing my book. "It's no bother at all." Sophie took a hesitant step forward, clutching her mother's hand. "Is it really yours?" she asked shyly. "You bought it all by yourself." "I sure did," I said gently. "Wow," she breathed. "When I grow up, I want to buy a house all by myself. Too. A purple one." My heart swelled with an emotion I couldn't quite name. I got up from the swing and walked over to the small table by my front door, where I kept a spare key. I picked it up, the metal cool in my hand. I walked to the gate and knelt down so I was at Sophie's eye level. "You know," I said softly, "sometimes when you have a really big dream, it helps to have something to hold on to remind you that it's real." I held out the key. "I want you to have this." Her eyes grew even wider. "A key to your house. Not to keep," I explained with a smile, "but to believe in. You hold on to this. And every time you look at it, you remember that you can do anything you set your mind to. You can build any future you want. Okay." Sophie nodded solemnly, her small fingers closing around the key. Her mother looked at me, her eyes misty. "Thank you," she mouthed. They continued on their walk, Sophie periodically opening her hand to peek at the key. I watched them go, a profound sense of purpose settling over me. My pain had been transformed into someone else's inspiration. My struggle had become a symbol of strength. That evening, I sat in my living room, a glass of wine in my hand. The house was quiet, filled with the soft glow of a single lamp. The silence was my companion now, a comforting presence. My home wasn't defined by the people who weren't in it. It was defined by me. It was filled with the echoes of kind words from strangers, the scent of a neighbor's apple pie, and the memory of a little girl's dream. I had bought this house to prove something to my family, but I had ended up proving something to myself, that I was strong enough, that I was worthy, that I could build a life and a home on my own terms. I didn't just buy a house. I built a home filled with strength,